you know, because he wouldn't stop talking about it, Pastor Scott is in Ireland.
What?
With my
I had no idea.
And my sister Sophia. If you don't know, I'm his daughter, so it's not just like awkward. Anyway, so yeah, my dad's in Ireland with my mom and sister, and they're having a lot of fun. I'm kind of surprised I haven't rubbed it in more now that they're there. So I am going to be speaking this week. When we were discussing the fact that my parents were going to Ireland and the fact that there would be 2 Sundays that they were going to be gone, I really felt like God was putting it on my heart to speak. But he wasn't giving me what to speak about, and that's a little frightening. So Tony and I were discussing this a couple weeks ago after my dad asked us to take charge of the services the couple weeks that they're gone, and he asked if I'd like to speak, and I said yes, but I still didn't know what I was going to speak about. So I was praying and reading books and Bible verses and trying to come up with what God would have me say, because I knew that I was supposed to speak today. And every time I tried to come up with something, being a very visual person, I kind of tried to picture it in my head where I could go this week into what God's been teaching me, but all I kept seeing was literally just a blank white slate. I couldn't come up with anything visually, I couldn't think of anything verbally, I was at a blank. And so I was praying, and I came to the point where I was like, God, you said you put words in our mouths, and so if I show up on Sunday with no actual idea of what it is that I'm going to be talking about, then I will be a willing idiot at your disposal, and you can use me to say whatever you need. So I was praying, and if you guys don't know, I also have a baby, and so I'm nursing, and usually I'm up late, honestly pumping so that I can be prepared when we have days like today or when we go out of town. And that's my quiet time, that's my me time. I'm usually watching Guilty Pleasure, great British baking show, while I'm up by myself. And then afterward, I go to bed and I usually end up reading. I've got several books that God's given me to read at this time that I read all but one. I'm going through it right now, and the others I'm kind of rereading. So I was reading the other night, and it was kind of late because we had put the baby down late, and then Tony and I had spent some time together late working on our house. And as I was reading, I just kind of felt like God was on the verge of giving me something. And as I was putting the book down and about to turn out the light, I just immediately got this image in my head. And you guys should know that I'm kind of a weird person, so my relationship with God sometimes comes out a little unconventional. And the 3 things that God put in my head were cups, tomatoes, and talons.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
So that's kind of the title of my message and the focus of what I was thinking about, because all I consistently could confirm that God was telling me was to share my story. But when I kept thinking of my story, I just kept drawing a blank until God put these 3 distinct images in my head before I slept. So,
Katie, can I ask you to speak a little bit louder, please?
louder?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yes, I will try and speak louder. So cups, tomatoes, and talents.
Not as loud as your dad, because that's painful.
Yeah, my voice doesn't reach those levels yet. Alright, so I'm going to start off with some fun, or not so fun facts. Via becomingaminimalist.com, I found this list of facts. Number 1, there are an average of 300,000 items in the American home. That tidbit comes from the LA Times. Number 2, 1 of every 10 Americans rent off-site storage. It is the fastest growing segment of commercial real estate industry over the past 4 decades. That's according to the New York Times. And number 3, the U.S. has upward of 50,000 storage facilities. To give you a concept, that's roughly 5 times the number of Starbucks. Okay, I don't know about you, but when I'm driving, like, I notice a Starbucks. I'm like, oh, there's a Starbucks over there, make a mental note of that. But when I don't keep track of storage facilities. I just don't. But to think that there are 5 times the number of storage facilities, or 5 times the number of Starbucks in storage facilities in Albuquerque just kind of blows my mind. So, to give you another idea
Well, in the
that,
U.S., not necessarily exactly now.
in the U.S., but probably also in Anyway, to give you an idea, that means there is 7.3 square feet of self-storage space for every man, woman, and child in the United States. Meaning that it is physically, though obviously hypothetically because of all the stuff, it is physically possible that every American could stand all at the same time under the total canopy of self-storage roofing. That's according to the Self-Storage Association. So basically, we have stuff. I saw another fact on there, and I didn't write it down. I should have, so I could give credit, that the average America in total, the United States of America, spends about $8 trillion, I think it was, like per year in non-essential goods. It was something crazy. Please don't quote me on that because I didn't write it down like I should have.
Sounds about right.
But it's pretty ridiculous. And that's one thing that God has been convicting me of recently. So join along in the toe crushing because that's what I'm going to talk about today. So the first image that God gave me was a cup. As you can see, I have lovely object lessons prepared here for you. So the cup. What does a cup do?
Holds water.
Holds
Yes.
a liquid.
It does. It holds a liquid. I mean,
It can
obviously
also
you put
hold
dry
something
stuff.
that's slime.
Yeah.
Slime isn't dry, but it also isn't a liquid, so.
Yeah, it can hold some non-liquids. That's true. So what is the purpose of a cup? If I go to a cabinet and grab a cup, what is its purpose?
To
hold
hold
the water.
something.
To be held? Yeah. It is to be filled with the intentionality of being emptied.
Okay.
So if I fill this cup, as you can see, I filled it about halfway with water and set it on the counter, is it fulfilling its purpose?
No.
It's holding stuff,
Fair enough.
but it is not being filled and it is not being emptied.
It'll evaporate.
It will evaporate. But what good is that water if it evaporates?
Right. But that's not the purpose.
Why did I put it in the cup?
Steam.
There you go. That's where you.
Why would I put it in the cup if I just wanted it to evaporate
Survival.
into steam? But it's not survival. The water's not giving me anything by being in the cup.
We weren't ready to empty all of it yet.
So you can
So-
accidentally spill on yourself?
But I don't want to accidentally spill because again, that's not what the cup is for.
Do you want to spill it on purpose then?
Kind of in my mouth. So, basically, a cup that is sitting on a counter is not fulfilling its purpose. And if you think about it, a cup that's never emptied or washed collects grossness, like germs, bacteria, mildew, bugs, flock
What's
to water.
mildew?
Mildew is a form of like mold. It's not good and it's stinky. Have you ever left wet clothes out for too long and they started smelling a
Nope.
little bit sour?
Remember when our washer was broken, Peter, and we had all of the wet clothes we needed to get to the
Yeah.
laundromat, and they started kind of smelling bad, and
It's
It
okay.
happens.
It happens.
It's not pleasant.
It's probably good that you don't remember the smell of mildew because it's
I
not
have
very
a bad
good
sense
smell.
of smell, and I do not remember smelling the clothes whatsoever. So.
That's
Okay,
all
Peter.
right. So basically, a glass of water is not going to serve its purpose if it's sitting on a counter, and it's not going to collect anything good if it's left alone to sit and collect things. All right. So number 2, the image that God gave me. So more fun facts. According to www.healthline.com, they did an article called Tomatoes 101, Nutrition Facts and Health Benefits. Tomatoes are the major dietary source of the antioxidant lycopene, which has been linked to many health benefits, including reduced risk of heart disease and cancer. Also, they are a great source of vitamin C, potassium, folate, and vitamin K. So, as you can see, my other object lesson, a tomato. I asked my husband to pick a particularly photo-worthy tomato when he went to the store yesterday.
Did it do okay?
He did. It's
Yay.
beautiful. It's nice and shiny. I don't know if you guys can all see.
Shiny.
Looks like a hot house tomato.
It looks great. All right. So, if I have this tomato, and this tomato has the potential to give me these wonderful health benefits, what do I have to do to get those benefits?
eat it,
Eat
soak
it.
it up.
I have to eat it.
You might want to cut it first, because
That's
eating
a
out of
good
a raw
choice.
tomato would be weird.
It is kind of weird, probably very messy too, because the juice would go
Oh,
everywhere. So, how many of you guys ever get a food that you really like? Now, my husband loves tomatoes. Like, when I do guacamole for him, it's like half tomatoes and then half everything else. Well, it's half tomatoes, a quarter lime, and then a quarter everything else. Because my husband likes tomatoes. Do you guys like tomatoes? Or do you have a particular food that you kind of like?
Oranges and grapes.
Oranges
Pizza.
and grapes, pizza, those are all good. So my thing is, I like chocolate.
Chocolate.
Now I kind of have a confession. I am somewhat of a chocolate hoarder.
What's a hoarder?
A hoarder is somebody who holds on to it and never lets go.
Oh.
Now
Would
this
you
can
rather
become a
pizza and get
problem.
more?
Aha, that's a good question. But for me, I don't want the chocolate to go away.
But then why
there
don't
have
you
been
get 2
multiple
bags, eat one,
times-
and then buy another bag and eat the older bag and...
But see, the problem is that I have this mindset that if I eat the chocolate, it's gone. And I don't want the chocolate to be gone. So I leave just a little bit left until I can buy more. But you know what happens? I don't buy more because I still have some. Do you see the problem?
Yeah.
So I'm this
Clearly.
way. My favorite cookies of all time are Christmas cookies called candy cane cookies, and we make them as a family, and they're a long, arduous, fun, complicated process. And we only ever used to get them around Christmas time. And now I found ways to, now that I'm an adult, to make them at other times of the year. But I don't do it too often because I don't want them to stop becoming special. Now one year, my husband surprised me for Valentine's Day and had my sister make me a bunch of these candy cane cookies. And guess what? I didn't want to finish them because if I finished them, they would be gone. And so his Valentine's Day gift. Guess what happened 6 months later, possibly?
They were no longer pleasant.
I had to throw them away.
Mhm.
I had to throw them away because they weren't good anymore. So instead of, like you said, eating them and enjoying them and then looking forward to the time that I got more, I ended up having to throw them away because they went bad. It's the same with, say, like a tomato.
I'm glad you don't have the same problem.
Tomatoes taste
That's
horrible.
good. More
That
for
is
me. So, tomatoes, if I hold on to a tomato for too long, what's going to happen?
It's
Gonna go bad.
You're gonna drop it.
I could drop it, bugs could get into it. It's just going to not be good because tomatoes are not meant to last forever. But how many times...
Honey lasts forever.
What does?
Honey.
It can last forever. It's pretty
Really
much the
can?
one food. So, tomatoes aren't going to last forever. And sometimes I feel like God blesses me with things like tomatoes. And I'm so excited and so grateful that God has blessed me with something like a tomato that I hold on to it. Okay? Sometimes I think, well, maybe I'll need it in the future. We're eating Chinese food tonight, so I don't really need a tomato for that meal. So what I do, I keep it in the fridge. Because the fridge will make it last longer, right? Until I have maybe, say, bread, mayo, lettuce, cheese, bacon. And then I have a good BLT sandwich. But you know what?
Minus the tea.
Peter.
Sometimes I don't get those ingredients. And I have a tomato that just goes bad. So that was the second image God gave me. And the third was talents. So we're going to read starting in Matthew 25. I purposely decided I was not going to bookmark the verses. I was going to flip through them along with the rest of you who are scrolling on devices. All right, so Matthew 25, starting in verse 14, and we're going to read through verse 30, so it's a little chunk of passage here. For it will be like a man going on a journey, as God is talking about, the coming of the kingdom of heaven. For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted them with his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents, and here I have made 5 talents more. His master then said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a little, and I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also, who had the 2 talents, came forward, saying, Master, you have delivered to me 2 talents, and here I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over little, and I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you have scattered no seed. So I was afraid. I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I have scattered no seed? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was mine with interest. So take the talent from him, and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. Then cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Okay, so I went through the trouble of reading that whole story, but how many of us here have heard that story before? Yeah, that's pretty much every hand here. So,
No, that doesn't include me.
it doesn't include you?
Or me.
Or
You've
you?
heard it before, David. Trust
Have
me.
I?
Yes.
Yeah, it's okay.
Anyway.
It's pretty common. But how many of us have heard this story as a metaphor for our actions, for our words, for our actual talents?
Yeah.
How many of us have stopped to consider that when God was talking about money, he was maybe also talking about stuff, like physical stuff? Because what is our stuff? It's money invested, if you think about it. Because
Resources.
everything you own, you likely paid for. Or somebody did. So you traded in money for stuff. And if you go back further, then you technically traded time, because how did you earn that money is by investing your time. So anyway, stuff is money. So one of the things that I wanted to note as well in this story is he gives each person according to their ability. Okay, according to their ability. 1 talent guy, the master knew could not handle 5 talents. 2 talent guy could also not have handled 5 talents. But 5 talent guy, if you think about it, probably used to be a 1 talent guy. But he was faithful with what the master gave him. So when it came time for the master to leave and leave his resources, he knew that he could trust 5 talent guy with 5 talents.
Yeah.
Another thing that I was thinking about that I've heard recently, I would say he's a famous baseball player, but I don't even remember his name. So he's famous to other people, baseball player. He gave a ton of money, and I'm talking like $6 million worth of money, to donate his it was $6 million worth of property. So again, somebody invested that much money to make the property worth that much value. He gave that to a Christian charity who designs and runs camps for people with special needs, so that they can come and experience, new things. And the first thing I thought when I heard that, I was like, wow, I wish God would give me that much money so that I could do something amazing like that. And immediately, it's one of those times where God is just like, you know how you're in a conversation with somebody and you say something and your mom has this quick wit and she's like, oh yeah, well you don't even, So I was sitting here thinking wow, I really wish God would give me this much money so that I could bless people on such a large scale. And immediately God was like, well, you're not even investing what I've given you. Told you, toes crushed this morning. Okay? Y'all are all coming with me. talks about, okay, sorry, let me reach up here. So again, money is a way of investing in things. Money is not good if it just sits in a bank. It doesn't do anything. It looks great when you talk to people and be like, hey, I got $10,000 in the bank, but my house is falling apart. My kids don't have food to eat. I'm wearing holes in my socks. It doesn't do you any good if it just sits there. Money is supposed to be invested. I hold on to stuff that God gives me. It's a problem. I'm not alone. I read off a ton of facts. It's a problem as a part of like first world culture.
Yeah.
I read off facts about America, but really this is a first world problem that we have developed over time. And God is starting to convict me of that. Because I hold on to things, and when I hold on to things, I technically am just burying it and it becomes useless. Or I use it to purchase things. I use it to purchase useless investments that bring no return whatsoever. Like buying a bunch of cookies and I'm going to sit at the back of the pantry because I don't want to finish and they go bad and I throw them out months later. Bad investment, right? How many of you guys buy bad lettuce? Like you buy lettuce and then forget about it, or you never end up eating as much as you thought you would, and then it just goes really slimy and gross, and you throw it out? Yeah, that's like the hardest thing to gauge. It's like, how much lettuce can I buy and not throw away?
Well, you can't really buy 2 leaves. So.
Exactly. You have to buy it in a head. But then, you're spending the same amount of money on a head this big as you could to get a head this big because they're marked by head and not by leaf count. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so, again, pointing out the fact, too, that 5-talent guy used to be a 1-talent guy. I'm confident that 5-talent guy used to... As how many of you guys have walked into a new job or a new position and they've said, great, we're making you CEO of the company?
What?
Anybody? It means chief executive officer. It means
You're in
boss.
charge of the business.
The boss is the
yes,
boss.
you are the boss. You tell people what to do. You make the most money. You get to make the most important decisions. You get to say who works for you and who doesn't.
This hasn't happened to me,
No.
but I haven't had a job at all. So.
See? But that doesn't happen at jobs. You don't walk in and somebody's like, great, day one, I like you. You are automatically CEO. No, you have to start at the bottom. Oftentimes, you start with a job at a fast food restaurant. Like I used to work for Chick-fil-A. Started when I was 15. You know what I did? I worked the registers. I washed tables. I took out trash. I cleaned up poop in the playroom. I did whatever was needed on that level. And eventually, I got to become a manager for a Chick-fil-A. And because I got to that position, if I go into another job, I already have that experience on my resume that maybe I could start a new job at a higher position because they know that I've done the job before. And they know that I've done it for a company that cares to have their employees learn how to do a job correctly. Looks good. But I had to start by cleaning poop out of a playroom and taking out trash and feeding people through a window. Yes. Anyway, again, I digress. So, 1-talent guy eventually became the 5-talent guy that we hear about. So, at the end, we read that to the one who has, more will be given. 5-talent guy was given the other guy's 1 talent because the master could trust him. The master knew that he wasn't going to sit there and hold on to the 1 talent because whose talent was it?
Masters.
Okay, let's go back to the very, very beginning here. For it will be like a man going on a journey. He called his servants and entrusted to them his property. That's ground level. That's starting point, place number 1. It was his property. It was never 5 talents guy. Like his responsibility, he had no authority to hold on to those 5 talents because they weren't his. He was responsible for the master's talent. So that makes what 1-talent guy did even worse. Because if your dad entrusts you with his stuff to take care of it, like my mom has asked me to water her plants while she's gone, and so, Jesus, help me. Because I am going to take responsibility for what my mom has entrusted me with and treat it with respect. If my mom has asked me to water her plants and I don't do it and they die on my account, That doesn't look great for our relationship, does it? Mom's not going to entrust me with something bigger than that if I can't even handle watering plants. Because that's the progression of responsibility. Because the plants don't belong to me. The talents didn't belong to 5 talent bags. So, going back to tomatoes. We're going to Galatians 6. Again, I didn't bookmark it, so bear with me while I try not to flip 400 pages all at once and end up in Revelation. All right. Galatians 6, starting in verse 7 through 10. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that he will also reap. For the one who sows to his own flesh will reap from the flesh corruption, and to the one who sows into the Spirit, from the Spirit he will reap eternal life. Let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. So then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are of the household of faith. Okay. So, my dad has talked about when you say yes to one thing, you say no to another. That's just a fact. If you say no to one thing, you're actually saying yes to another. So when I have something that God has given me, there's a spiritual like a spiritual truth, I believe, that if I'm given something, I'm going to sow it. One way or another, the things that I have, I am actually sowing. Am I sowing it into my flesh and into the fact that I want to hold on to this just in case? Because if I'm doing that, what I'm saying is I trust more in my ability to be a doomsday prepper or to be resourceful than I am believing in God's ability to provide for me.
Yeah.
It's a tomato. Tomatoes grow. It's what they do. This is not the last tomato on earth, and thank God, because we have people fighting over it. Tomatoes grow. Yes.
Although it's the opposite of the bag of gold. If you plant that, you will get the abundance out of it. That's
kind of. It's, again, where
But if you store it in the
sow it.
fridge, not so much.
true.
Exactly. Again, it's depending on where you sow it. So I am not a tomato farmer. I do not have the means to sow a tomato reasonably and expect a harvest. So I rely on God providing tomatoes for my BLTs. That's a fact. Whether it's through the paycheck that God gives my husband and I go to the store and buy a tomato, or somebody gives it to me as a gift, I rely on God for my tomatoes. So if I'm holding on to this just in case, then what I'm saying is I don't trust God to provide enough money or a gift of a tomato for another time. And you know what I reap? I reap rotten tomatoes because they sit in my fridge and they die.
Yeah.
That's what happens. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have a tomato and save it for a few days. That's what the refrigerator is for. Sometimes God provides us with a blessing that's for the future. But you know what? Sometimes God's going to give me a tomato, and my neighbor, John, is sitting over here, and he's got bread, and he's got tomato, and he's got lettuce, and he's got bacon. And you know what? He may not need my tomato, but God has given me a tomato to bless his sandwich just a little bit more. See, I told you, I'm a weird person, so God and I have this weird connection, okay? I swear, this is distinctly what I heard from God, was tomatoes. So bear with me. So sometimes I have the opportunity to bless John's sandwich just a little bit more. Because God gives good gifts. God is a good father. God likes to have fun. God is the creator of laughter and joy. And sometimes he wants me to be able to bless somebody else. Sometimes he gives me the tomato to bless my sandwich just a little bit more. And you know what? Sometimes I have bread, a tomato, I have peanut butter, and I have jelly. And sometimes the tomato is unnecessary. And I'm going to have PB and jelly rather than bacon. But you know what? God has provided for my needs. So when I am faithful to sow this into whatever God has given it to me for, whether it's for my own sandwich, which I eat and receive the nutrients of a tomato, or it's to give to somebody else so they receive the nutrients and receive a much better sandwich. When I sow it like that, I receive the blessing of the Spirit. I receive and stand on the truth that God is my provider. And God is going to be the one to take care of what I need. That makes sense? Nobody wants no rotten tomatoes. All right, so going back to cups then. All right, so we're reading Psalm 37, verse 21. In the middle of the Bible. There we go.
What was it?
That was Psalm 37, verse 21. That was a trick that my dad taught us in kids' church. If you have like an actual hard copy of the Bible, like some of us still do, then you can hold it and go directly to the middle, give or take, and you'll find Psalms. All right. So Psalm 37, verse 21. I think I said that enough.
What was it? Just kidding.
The wicked borrows, but does not pay back. But the righteous is generous and gives. Okay? The wicked borrows and does not pay back, but the righteous, they are generous. That's something that my dad says over and over and over again. And now you have the actual reference. Psalm 37:21. The righteous are generous. So I want to go to the nice little cliche. Are you a glass half empty or a glass half full kind of person? And what does society tell you you're supposed to be? Glass half full. You're constantly supposed to look for the fullness of your glass, your little life glass. That's what I'm going to call it, little life glass. So this is your life. And you're constantly trying to find a way to view positively what you do have in your life rather than looking on what you don't have. Yes?
I was thinking society tells you glass half empty because you're always looking for more. You don't have enough.
Or you need to find a bigger glass.
Or that.
You need to find a bigger glass in order to make room for the stuff that you're going to get.
Yeah.
They're constantly looking to get you more and more and more. But I'm suggesting, what if we gave that a little paradigm shift? What if we started getting excited about the glass emptying? Not being empty, but emptying. Because when I am emptying out the glass, it means it's ready to get filled again. That's what a glass is for. It's filled for the purpose of being emptied. God gives us things for the purpose of blessing sometimes ourselves and sometimes others. But if we hold on to the water in the cup, what makes you think that God's going to give us more? Why would God give us more if we're not responsible with what we already have? And we already discussed, if my glass gets filled again by the Holy Spirit, and I let it sit on a counter, what does it do? It evaporates. It collects mildew. It attracts bugs. It's not good. It's not hydrating me. It's not hydrating people. It's not watering plants. It is pretty worthless just sitting on a counter. That's not the purpose of a cup. That's not the purpose of what God has given us as life. We are meant to be conduits of God's grace and blessing and mercy. Yes?
Kind of like going back to your cookie metaphor. Why would God give you more cookies if you don't want to eat the cookies you already have?
Exactly. And sometimes God is waiting for our cup to be empty so he can fill it with something new. Sometimes it's something better. Sometimes it's something more. We always seem to have this concept of, I will give to other people without care when my cup is overflowing. Have you ever had that thought? I mean, no, as far as I know, people haven't really put it in those words yet. But for me, that's what I'm thinking. Is when I have too much, then I will freely give it away. But I have to make sure that I have what I need right now, that I feel full right now. And so I hoard cookies, and so I hoard stuff. I hold on to stuff that has sentimental value to me, stuff that was given to me as gifts, stuff that, honestly, I paid money for. I'm controlled by the fact that I invested my money in that object and I can't get rid of it because I owe it to the money I spent, which again goes back to time. To the time either my husband spent at his job or that I had spent at my job before Riot. That I owe it to that time and I owe it to that money to hold on to it. And it's rotting. And it's creating a rotten harvest. in me.
Yep.
Because I don't use it. I don't want it. I don't enjoy it. I have to find places to store it. That's a pain in the butt. My house is dictated by the stuff that I have in it. I can't feasibly decorate my house in certain ways because I have to find places for my stuff. I have to find places for the shelves that I have to bring into the house in order to store my stuff.
Yep.
My life is dictated by that. One of my goals in the future, one of my dreams, is to move overseas. I want to live in the UK. Being there now, Dad. I want to live in the UK. I'm not sure what country. I love the Scottish accent. I could sit there and listen to someone from Scotland speak to me all day long, and they'd think I was crazy. And you know what? They'd sound good saying it. So, I would love to live overseas, but realistically, I can't take all this stuff with me. I just can't. We would not be able to afford it. If God called me to move overseas in the next few weeks and He provided the funds for my family to get there, I can almost guarantee you He would not provide the funds for all of my Funko Pops.
Yeah.
Because those are not important to the ministry. Those are not being invested. They're not reaping a harvest of the Spirit. Right now, they're reaping a rotten harvest of storage space in my home. Another thing, how many of you, I'm mostly speaking to the ladies here, but men are also equally guilty of doing this sometimes. How many times do you walk to or into your closet or walk to your dresser and look in and see a bunch of clothes that don't fit you anymore? But you're holding on because one day, I'm going to lose the weight and the 6 inches, and I'm going to fit in that again. Okay, I, for the longest time, held on to clothes because I told myself I was gaining weight, and I needed an incentive to lose it. Okay, I'm in high school. I was in soccer. I was actively running and working out 45 minutes a day. Okay, that's a lot for most of us. I was fit, I was healthy. If I had lost any more weight, I'd be anorexic. But also, I had a growth spurt since middle school. Again, like several inches that I'm not ever going to lose. So these items that I am keeping, because one day I'll fit back in them, I will never fit back in them. And I'm holding clothes that are getting old and going, getting that musty kind of stale smell, They get washed and then they sit in a drawer forever. And they don't have that fresh detergent going into them. They stink. Anyway, they started to smell like must, and they were not doing anyone any good. And finally God convicted me and said, what the heck are you holding on to these for? Do you not trust that I'm able to provide clothes for you, even if you lose weight? It's not like God's going to be surprised one day, like, oh no, she's actually doing it. What am I going to do? God is not surprised. God knows your intentions and He sees what you're doing. And if you're holding on to those clothes, you're saying, God, I don't trust you to take care of me. Because that's what I was doing. That's what I was saying. Do you know how many extra toothbrushes I still have? I've pared it down. How many extra unopened toothbrushes I keep in my apartment in case we have guests over, in case we go camping, in case something happens to the ones I have. They're good toothbrushes. They're sealed. They don't.
Every time we go to the dentist.
You kidding me?
Yeah.
They're just taking up space. They're taking up space in my home. They're taking up space in my heart. They're taking up space in the back of my mind because I'm a woman, and that tab never closes. You know what I also used to be guilty of hanging on to? The little soap bottles and shampoos and conditioners that you get at hotels, because they're perfect for traveling. Do you know how often I travel? And when I do, I would much rather take a bottle of my own stuff. But just in case. Just in case. And I am guilty of telling God that He is not capable or not doing a good enough job of taking care of me. And that is wrong. I'm putting more faith in my ability to spend money on resources than I am God to provide the resources I need. I'm burying those talents that God has given me. What if we were to invest our little 1 talent sized glasses of life into the kingdom and reap a harvest? for the kingdom with what God has given us in that small talent, you know what's going to happen? Eventually we're going to move up to the 10 talent size classes, because that's what happens when you are faithful. When you are faithful to invest, he who has more will be given, and he who has not, even what he has, will be taken away. God wants to move us up. Have you guys, I'm pretty confident, again, I didn't look this up, it was late last night, but I'm pretty confident it was J.C. Penney who decided that he was going to tithe 90% and live off the 10%. And you know what? You know who J.C. Penney is without me actually telling you. If for no other reason than you've walked past that store, the men's and the women's in the mall. It takes up both stories. It's a big deal. God blessed his choice to sow the 90%. He was faithful, and you know what? God is faithful back, because whose resources are they? They're God's resources. He wants to see them prosper. He wants to see them succeed, because that looks good for him, and it accomplishes the work that he's doing on earth. So when we invest God's resources, he's going to be faithful to give us more, or give us a new direction. If something's not working, he's going to prod our hearts and be like, hey, maybe you need to invest over here. You know those clothes in the back of the closet? Your sister and her friend Rachel are about that size. And you know what? They are the correct weight, and they are the correct height to wear those clothes. And if they're not, they might know somebody who is. And if they don't, there are multiple charities in town that would more than gladly take gently used clothes that all they need is a good washing and give them to people who genuinely don't have clothes. God is interested in giving success to his kingdom and to the resources that invest in his kingdom. Now, that doesn't mean that we are supposed to live like little hermits in the new little tiny homes. Have you seen those? People live in like 100 square feet, and they find a way to fit their bathroom and their shower and their bed and their kitchen all in one space. I'm sorry, I don't want to be cooking food that near the fecal matter. I'm sorry. That just is revolting to me on a certain level. At least have a little portable Tagalog outhouse or something. I don't know. Anyway, so they have these tiny homes, and people, because of like the facts that are read off, are trying to live a much more minimalistic style. They're trying to make less of a carbon footprint. They're trying to make sure that people who have no home, like homeless people, have an opportunity to feel like they have a space that's theirs. There are a lot of good things that come out of that. God is not calling us all to live that way. Because I can't host people in a tiny home. Yeah. And we are made for relationship. It's what we're made to do. It's something that I love to do. I like to host people. I like to have people over and have thought of every possibility and make sure that everything is ready and perfect for them to be there. I like that. It's good. It's something that God has put in my life. So when God gives me a space that's bigger than 100 square feet, I can be okay with that. I can enjoy that, but at the same time, I need to invest that, because God has given me that space not to just be my space. It's the space where I'm raising my son. It's the space where Tony and I are growing our marriage. It's the space where we can have friends over. I've been connecting with my neighbor and her 2-year-old daughter. It's the space where they come over and we're building a relationship. That's what God has given it to me for, and that's one way that I can invest it. But it is being buried, and it is bearing no good fruit if I do nothing with it. The truth is that our stuff will not be going with us when we die. Yeah. I had a dear friend whose mom passed away when I was in 4th grade. She died of cancer. Her name was Ella. She was a second mom to me. We were over at her house all the time. There are some very certain memories, like, I'm this total tangent, but I gotta share this, because this will show you how I thought as a kid. So we were all playing dress up at my friend's house, this great big sleepover. It was like Friday night. I don't even know if we were in school yet. But it was like 11 o'clock at night, and you know, being that young, like, that's a big deal. We were super stoked and having fun. And all of a sudden, my best friend's mom and dad walk in, and they're like, okay, it is time for you guys to go to sleep. You guys are being a little bit too loud, like it's time to go to bed. But you know what? They let us stay up that late. She let us do that. And in my brain, my first thought was like, darn, they heard us. If we were quieter, they would not have known, and we would have been able to stay up until morning. That was my first thought. But she was constantly sweet like that, making sure we felt loved. Well, she passed away from cancer, which is not fair to anyone. And it was really hard, and one thing that she always thought and had on hand for my dad was Dr. Pepper. And that was a big deal for them. So my dad wrote a sweet note to her on a can of Dr. Pepper to be put in her casket at the funeral. That can is still in the ground. I don't know how the resurrection works, if we're going to be brought back into this dimension, or what happens, or if God's going to transport that can of Dr. It's possible that that can of Dr. Pepper will be at the wedding feast for us, because that was sweet and that meant a lot to my dad, and I know that God cares about what we care about. But I can tell you right now that that's still there. It's not going with us. Our stuff is not going with us. The only thing that goes with us is people. And we have to invest in people. We have to invest in ourselves. We have to be healthy with ourselves. We have to invest in our marriage relationships. We have to invest in our family. And then we have to invest in the church and even the people outside the church. Because according to Matthew 6:21, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. My treasure has been in stuff for far too long. And it's not something that I've actively thought about, like, oh, I love my stuff. I need more stuff. But at the same time, I've been holding on to this stuff, afraid to let it go, because I spent money on it, because somebody gave it to me as a gift, because it has a good memory with it. Yes?
I know, I have a really quick story that reminded me of. When I was young, I used to love, I don't know if you know about them, there are these little dolls that you can like clothe and everything called Polly Pockets.
Oh.
I used to love my Polly Pockets. I still have them in my room. But when I was younger, I thought that when I would die, I'd like be holding my Polly Pockets with me.
It doesn't.
That's what that reminded me of.
You want to know what's really bad? You can ask my parents. They'll tell you this if you ask. So I'll get it out of the way first. I used to cry over throwing things away. You know what happened? I found a box a few months ago as we started this process of getting rid of things. It had my entire, like, 6th grade Spanish project in it with graded papers from Spanish, just in case I needed to refer back to them. Do you know when the last time was that I saw that paper? When I was in 6th grade. I never went back to look at it. I would cry as a kid. There was once that I ripped off, like, a candy bar wrapper, and you know, you tear the corner off, and it fit so dang perfect on my finger. It was like a little hat, and I loved it, and I held on to it for at least a couple years as it sat on my dresser before I finally threw it away. Yeah, I have had a problem with this, and God is really starting to convict me because I don't want to pass this on to my son. This is not the kind of lesson that I want to teach my son, is that we are more responsible for our life's provision than God is, and that's not right. So when God does give you stuff, and when God does give you blessings, appreciate them, enjoy them, but don't clasp to them. Don't hold them so tightly that they become rotten blessings. Be available, because you know what? God has blessed me with a bunch of Funko Pops. I love Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia, but they don't make me those yet. I love Lord of the Rings, and my husband and my family have gifted me with Lord of the Rings things, including almost all of the Lord of the Rings Funko Pops, and almost all of, there's one more, pretty much all of the Lord of the Rings Legos. I love that, and I'm excited for that, but you know what those are doing right now? All my Funko Pops are stacked face down on top of the shelf so that they could all fit and be out of the way. All my Legos are packed up in bags because I don't have a place to display them. I am not enjoying the gifts that God has given me. Right now there is stress because they're taking up space in my house. And when I am called to go overseas, you know what? Those probably won't come with me. Maybe a couple of them. But there are things so much more important that God wants to do in and through me overseas than me hanging on to Funko Pops and staying here. So, self-check. thought of that. Anyway.
You thought of that.
You
No,
become
that's
your
never
dad
mind.
now.
No, I didn't mean like, I'm
No.
not taking credit for
I
it,
know.
I just mean I remembered to do it.
Yes.
You become your dad now.
I become my dog now?
Dad, sorry.
Oh. I was like, what?
Those
Okay.
are different.
The first thing is think of your things. Like, I don't know about you, but when I think of things that are in my house, certain things stand out as being a pain. They're frustrating to me, they're inconvenient, they've lost joy for me because they're not supposed to be mine anymore. Some of those things aren't good enough to give away. Some of those things aren't even good enough to no. They need to go away. They need to be permanently gone. And you know what? That's even harder because those things bring memories. I have a pretty decent memory. I really do. I remember the little foil hat. I can remember the names of the people in my first grade class. I remember what I was wearing on the first day of first grade. I have a fairly good memory. So what's hard for me is to separate the fact that this is no longer a blessing and get rid of it and say thank you. The best way to find appreciation for the blessings God has given you is just to say thank you and to be grateful for what He's given you and the time that you had with it. Tony and I were talking last night. There are certain things that we were looking at possibly getting rid of. We spent a lot of money on these things. I'm talking like the entire Hogwarts castle is a 3D puzzle. $50 a box for 2 sets. Whole castle. We spent $100 on that. That's what rings true in my mind. Is that we spent money on this. And we haven't enjoyed it to its fullest. But you know what? We talked about it. And to spend that much money was a good investment for us. Because it meant we spent time together and we spent time with my sister Sophia. And we have good memories. And we had it on display for a very long time. We even had the Hogwarts flying Christmas moose. Yeah, that's a fun story for another time. We have fun and funny memories with that. But you know what? It's not a place that necessarily needs to stay in our home anymore. It's not something that needs to be there. It's not something that's edifying us as a married couple, as a family. Raya is going to be way too young for that for so many years, and there's no point in holding on to it for that long. If we really want to, when Raya is old enough, we can go out and buy a new puzzle. May not even be Hogwarts. Might be, Tower of Orthanc or something. I don't know. But it's time to move on. So sometimes things stick out with you. So the things you need to ask yourself is, why are you holding on to it? Really, why? If you have to come up with excuses to keep it, and you don't just logistically have a reason, then sometimes that might be a sign that you let it go. Because so-and-so gave it to you? Was it because you might need it one day? Was it because you spent money on it and you owe it to that money and to that time and to yourself to try and enjoy it? Because that means that thing is controlling you. That money that you spent and that item has a certain hold over your heart and over you because you feel obligated to the money and you feel obligated to the object because you sacrificed time for that. You sacrificed money that you could have spent. And there's an element of guilt, and you should never do anything strictly because of guilt. That's not healthy. That's negative. That's just going to continue to sow rotten harvest. It's not good. How can you reinvest those things into the kingdom? Some of those things we discussed, you just throw away. And you know what? That creates floor space for you to welcome people into your house. That's an investment. It creates space in your mind and in your heart to know that you're not hanging on to that anymore. That is an investment. Sometimes you can give it away to a friend or give it away to charity if it's in a good enough condition. And you know what? We have a lot of fun toys. My husband and I are fun people. I love Lord of the Rings. He likes Harry Potter. We like Harry Potter. We like Marvel is his thing. Used to be Batman. So we have a lot of fun things, including toys. And you know what those toys have done? They've sat on our shelf and collected dust. When there are kids who may not be getting Christmas presents this year, who are big Batman fans, I can reinvest those toys into somebody else's life. Let them know that they are not alone, and that they are seen, and that they are important, and that God cares about them having some fun. I can reinvest it. How do you reinvest the things that are taking up negative space in your life? Another thing, moving forward from now on, being more frugal and wise with your money investments. Appreciate what you have and don't go out and buy things you don't need or things that are only going to last you a little while. And you know what? Sometimes you have to spend money. Sometimes, here's the best part, you get to spend money. God has blessed you with a little extra birthday money and you have the choice on what you want to spend it on. That's okay. My goal when we have finished going through all of our stuff and come to the point where we feel happy with the money investments that are in our house, that's what I'm just going to call it now, stuff, the money investments that are in our house at the time, I want to interior design my home. I want to feel like it expresses our family. I want to feel like I had the opportunity to make it our home. I want it to be welcoming. I want it to be beautiful. And you know what? I am probably going to go spend money on things like throw pillows or blankets. I'm going to buy frames. And you know what? Those things may not come with me to Scotland, but I'm investing into the home where me and my son spend pretty much every day, where my husband comes home to, where our important relationship connections happen. I'm investing into that. I'm creating an atmosphere that's going to foster that growth and that connection that I want. That's important to me, and you know what? It's important to God. But I'm not going to go and buy a $100 throw pillow. No, in fact, I've even bought material already that I loved and that made me feel happy and that communicated to me the kind of space that I want to have. And that reminds me of the UK. It reminds me of the Scottish countryside. You know why? Because that's where my vision is. That's where I feel called to, and I'm not going to distract myself from that. Distract or detract. I'm going to continue to look forward to the calling that God has given me and make investments in that, and investments that continue to remind me of that. So be frugal with your money, and every once in a while, have fun with it. One thing that my dad always taught us when somebody gave money to my parents as a thank you, for pastor appreciation or that kind of thing, they often would take us to Cece's Pizza. My poor mother, she loved us that much. Because they wanted to let us know that their ministry was able and successful in part to our support. Because that meant mom and dad were doing things sometimes when we wanted to just hang out. Or we had to go to the church rather than to a friend's birthday party. There were time commitments that we made, but they also wanted to let us know that God made sure that we could have fun. And that serving him had rewards. Mm-hmm. And gosh darn it, that Alfredo pizza was such a reward. I still have a little soft spot for Cece's. They have fallen in quality and variety, but you know what? That Alfredo pizza, that grease still tastes exactly the same as it did when I was a kid. And there's that nostalgic part of me that loves it and regrets it later. So anyway, sometimes you get to enjoy those things. But one other thing is when you start to find those things that God is calling you out on and calling you to do, find help. You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to find ways of reinvesting alone. You don't have to find ways of borrowing alone. You don't have to find yourself in the middle of this process of being confronted by your stuff alone. There are tools, there are resources. I would love to encourage you. I would love to talk to you about things. Sometimes what you need to do is repurpose an item to reinvest it. That would be exciting for me to learn how to do that. But get help. For me, what I've been finding help in is the spark that started this forest fire was Marie Kondo's Tidying Up TV show on Netflix. Now, it is not a Christian TV show, and Netflix has made some very political stances on there. I feel like some of the people were chosen for their lifestyle rather than their actual organizing needs, but that's beside the point. So when you watch it, have grace for Netflix. But it's very good because she comes at this approach from a very positive perspective, that every step toward success is success. She's working with people in LA. Some of them have like multi-million-dollar homes, it looks like. And they have years and years and years and multi-million dollars worth of stuff piled up. And at the end of this whole process, their garage still can't fit a vehicle, but you know what? You can see from one end to another. The kids' toys can all fit off the floor. There is walking space in the bedroom, the closet door shut, and she celebrates that success with them because it is success. They are walking toward a better lifestyle. And because they've learned these tips and learned these habits, it's going to continue. And eventually, you know what? They might even downsize to a smaller house. Who knows? Or they might invite people over into their big house and invest their house that way. But she celebrates the success. Other things that I found, Restoration House, written by, I'm going to butcher this. Her name is Kenesha, last name Bucks? It's B-U-Y-C-K-S, Bikes.
Oops.
I am totally butchering this. She has her own blog, and I'm sure that it's been corrected on there, but she has a book called Restoration House. It's all about how God used her house and the items that she kept in it over a 10-year period in the military to help bring a restoration in her and what a house is supposed to look like and how a house is supposed to function as a healthy Christian investment. Really encouraging. And the last one is called Grace Not Perfection by Emily Lay. This is the book I'm still reading. And she just talks about the fact that make plans, but realize that plans are flexible. You're going to make plans to get rid of all this. Oh, I'm making plans. I'm not going to put that on you. I am making plans to get rid of all these things that aren't an investment in the kingdom. And I will mess up. I will give in to the fact that it's Lord of the Rings and I like it. And I might hold on to it a little bit longer. And you know what? That's okay. It's okay. Because I'm not supposed to be immediately perfect. That's not what God has called us to. He's called us to a process of perfection. But don't stop. Have grace when you fall. Have grace when you spend money on something you shouldn't have. Have grace when you let the tomatoes rot in the back of the fridge. Have grace when you let the water sit in your cup for too long. But move forward. Fall forward, like my dad said. So again, to wrap things up, get a good view of your life. Stop and take check of your life and the things that are in it. Find the things that are invested in a poor harvest. And also check and find the things that are invested in good harvest and celebrate them. Celebrate them. So I'm going to go ahead and pray. God, we thank you for this opportunity to hear what you have to say, at least to me, God, as I share my story and the toe-crushing moments that you've brought me to. God, I pray that you would open our eyes and open our hearts to see how to invest our lives into your kingdom, because when we're investing in your kingdom, we will find success. That is the only kind of success. That is the only good success. And that's the only way for us to feel fulfilled, because that's what we were designed to do. God, help us to remember that they're your things anyway. And you're not going to bring about success to things that don't work for you. So God, help us to understand from that perspective that they're yours, that we want to invest, God, and then give us joy and appreciation for the things that we do have. Help us to see that you are a good Father and that you want our lives to be full, even if it's not full of stuff. Help us to build relationship and to find growth and healing in this process. In Jesus' name. So as Dad would say, we believe in you and we believe in Jesus in you. Have a good week, and if you found this video was helpful or encouraging, go ahead and share to your wall. And if you have questions, put them in the comments or send a private message to the church page, and we'll get back to you on those.